We have finally entered the 6th generation of the Mega Man X games, and the first 3D Mega Man X title with Mega Man X7. This game is rather infamous within the Mega Man community. I think to have suffered enough with X6, and I'm scared to dive into X7 alone. Thankfully, someone is brave enough to join in the review with me.
Hey Tanooki, nice to see you.
Oh hey, another Mega Man fan. Nice to see you too, Aero, and thanks for joining.
So what are you looking at today? Is it a classic game? Oh, maybe you're gonna start looking at Battle Network?
So, how do you feel about X7?
Get me out of here now.
Too late! We've had your introduction. There is no escape.
We're really doing this, huh? This is what I signed up for?
Of course! I've got to compete the marathon. Gotta show the peaks and the valleys. So, Aero, how did you get into the Mega Man franchise, and what made you decide to play X7?
Well, I played Mega Man 2 through 6 on my 3DS way back in 2013 or so, and then branched off into the other series in the years following. It's definitely a favorite series of mine. Of course, I knew I had to play X7 at some point, both because of morbid curiosity and to make my worst Mavericks list way back when. Fortunately, a friend at college had a copy. I do not like this game. At all.
Unfortunately, there isn't much info on X7's development. So, what do you say to jumpstart this review?
Whatever rips this band-aid off faster.
We start off with a CGI cutscene showing the new group of the game, Red Alert, as well as a new main character, Axel, showing his copying ability. Axel then defects from Red Alert and runs into Zero to be taken to Maverick Hunter headquarters.
Red then contacts the Maverick Hunters in hopes of getting Axel back, but when Axel refuses, Red steps up a wager. He'll release 8 Mavericks in Red Alert's custody, and whoever can catch them first gets Axel. Yep, these guys supposedly had 8 Mavericks just lying around and just let them go.
Wait, hold up. Aren't those guys part of Red Alert?
The story can't even keep itself straight apparently, but that's the least of this game's issues. As it begins, we're in control of Axel. Not the titular X, the new guy. And he's pretty much just an inferior X because he doesn't have a charge shot.
Well, at least he isn't a whiny crybaby.
Why must Reploids fight one another? I've had enough violence.
Yeah, the characterization in this game is, putting it mildly, pretty bad. Though I will say that the intro stage taking place on Central Highway from X1 is actually kinda cool. It even has the Hornet mini-bosses. Nice touch.
Nothing much else happens now. We do get multiple cutscenes for each stage completed, showing Axel's background with his copy ability, and the sinister menace who is absolutely not Sigma. His name is Jeff.
Of course, it's not the stories people tend to talk about with this game, it's absolutely the voice acting. And why is that? Well...
It hurts!
Nice work, Zero.
That's quite enough! You need to back off and pay the dues for your crimes! We've made this mistake time and time again. Why must Reploids continue this accursed cycle of aggression?
You don't know? How could you not know?
Welcome to my silly stage!
Hey, Pumba! Not in front of the kids.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's enough of that. Let's move on to how this game actually plays. As Tanooki alluded to earlier, this was the X series' big jump into 3D. Certainly an ambitious endeavor, but it fell flat on its face.
I'm kind of surprised they made a 3D game to begin with, since we already have the Mega Man Legends series, which from what I heard, have turned out good and made the 3D combat enjoyable.
Unfortunately, this game does not follow those footsteps. For one thing, movement is so sluggish, even dashing. You see how slow that is? It's pathetic! And this even affects the 2D segment. You know, what the X-Series is famous for? Shooting isn't much better since the auto-lock is hilariously fickle, especially when switching targets. And it's weird because there were other platformers around this time that handled it way better. As a perfect example, look at Ratchet and Clank! That was a great game that handled shooting near flawlessly!
I adored Zero in the 2D games, especially being one of the only decent parts of X6. but he doesn't translate well in a 3D environment. The range is pathetic, making you take more damage every time you go up against an enemy, and his attack speed is very slow. No attack tensor here either, folks.
Zero was always one of the most fun elements of this series, and to see him gutted like this, it just makes me sad. So Control is slow, shooting with Axel is picky, and Zero just feels off. What about X though? How does he play?
Well, you have to unlock him first.
Excuse me?
Yep. I feel sorry for the poor chap who wanted to play the next Mega Man X game, who saw him on the front cover, and you see this. You have to unlock him by saving a certain amount of hostages, or beat or 8 Mavericks.
What idiot came up with that idea? But yeah, you have to unlock the character the series is named after, and by default, you have to go through at least 4 stages, bare minimum. And when you do get X, well, Axel is effectively out of a job at that point. X's charge shot is enormous and passes right through walls, mitigating a lot of the challenge.
I actually disagree with you there, as by the time I got X in my playthrough, Axel and Zero were already pretty much maxed out in stats. X, while indeed strong, he was fragile as a quid at the start, and you have to go back to the previous stages to get the armor parts, so I didn't bother to end up using him in my playthrough.
Speaking of which, saving Reploids does more than just unlock the character that should be there from the start. Certain Reploids have chips that can be used to augment the hunter's offense, defense, and other attributes. On paper, this is a cool idea, but since the Reploids can be killed by any hazard and you can't see them until they're really close, it's just annoying.
Like in the other titles, X can get armored parts. However, since he has to be unlocked, you would have to backtrack to the previous stages to get them, since Axel and Zero cannot obtain them for him, which is odd since Zero was able to enter the light capsules in X5 and X6.
Though at the very least, you can use these parts as soon as you find them. The helmet part allows items to be drawn in easier, the arm part allows special weapons to be charged, the body part gives access to the Giga Crash, and the leg part lets X glide. Riveting, isn't it? Definitely a poor armor set, all things considered.
It's odd how you can glide with X by pressing the jump button again, but with Axel you have to hold the jump button before you take off, which caused me a few deaths every now and then, especially in Wind Prorang stage with the poor depth perception.
And that's a good segue into the level design of this game, which ranges from mediocre to straight up terrible. The Soldier Stone Kong stage, which is as bland as it gets, Snipe Anteater's level is just hard on the eyes, Ryborski has a bad Ride Stitcher stage, and Flame Hyadarn... yeah, let's move on.
Needless to say, the levels are not fun to go through, being dark and generic, and don't get me started on the bosses.
The bosses are also not fun. They range from completely boring, to frustrating, to Snipe Anteater! Straight up, the worst Maverick fight in the series, and it's not even close! He has complete freedom on the cylinder you're standing on, while you're stuck on the top, and it's incredibly possible that he'll just stick to the bottom and spam attacks. And if you don't have X yet, you know, because you haven't unlocked him yet perhaps, this fight is almost impossible without incredible luck.
Certainly not the Maverick you want to start off with. Most of the Mavericks are also basically damage sponges, and a test of endurance hearing the same lines come out every second.
And how about the weapons you get from these Mavericks? Well, they're all bad. X games usually have a decent selection of weapons that serve different purposes, but the weapons in X7 are either too weak, too slow, or somehow both. The only notable exception is a Splash Laser when charged, which is the most powerful weapon in this series for some reason.
On the plus side, at least you can use the default weapons to defeat the bosses.
You know, Tanooki, I really don't like this game. Do you mind if I go in full rant mode just going over other details I can't stand?
Sir, knock yourself out.
Okay, let's start with basic platforming. It can be a total nightmare at times because of how unhelpful the air dash can be. This is especially true whenever enemies are around because the knockback in this game is absolutely ridiculous. Especially in stages like Wing Chromray and Flame Hyadarn, it's all too easy to get cheap shotted by an enemy and fall to your doom. Speaking of doom, if one hunter dies, then you just lose a life instantly. You can tag between the two hunters at any time, but if one dies, you're just straight up out of luck. This is further compounded by how nearly impossible it can be to dodge attacks at times, meaning all those pod shots are going to add up fast. That is, unless you choose to ignore most of the enemies when the 3D environment allows for it, because yeah, that's a thing in a lot of stages. And don't even get me started on the fight with Red near the end of the game. Game may be worse, but this fight is absolutely horrendous because it's all too easy to fall to your death either from the stiff controls or Red knocking you off. Why the fight with Sigma is way easier than this, I will never understand. This game is just absolutely horrendous!
Wow. I know I dislike the game, but I didn't realize how much you hate it.
Sorry, I just needed to let that all out. This game is part of one of my favorite series in gaming, and it's not just bad, but also backwards in a lot of ways. The uninspired Mavericks, the weak platforming, the capability of just ignoring most enemies, this doesn't feel like the Mega Man X series I know and love. And this is coming from someone who has X6 as a guilty pleasure.
For me, X7 was trying to divert a well-known 2D franchise into a 3D game. However, unlike Legends, the developers failed in this regard. The shoulder buttons are used to rotate the camera instead of using the right analog stick, which is a poor choice for the time of the game's release. Plus, the audio bouncing is quite a mess, with the constant audio cues from the bosses to no sound effects when you pick up heart tanks.
I will say though, for how much I despise this game, I do really like the boss theme. That is one sick jam.
Well, it was nice for you to show up. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. And if your viewers are interested in more gaming content, maybe they can swing by my channel.
I'm sure they would enjoy your content, especially your Maverick videos. Thanks for suffering through this game with me.
Happy to help. Well, this is Aero Dragon, signing out.
Next in line is the final X game in the series, with Mega Man X8. And hopefully, the series ends with a bang. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a wonderful day.